Peace and abundance, peace and abundance, peace and vibrations, my brothers, peace and abundance. How are y'all doing today? Right? How are y'all doing today? It's a beautiful day out. Ra is shining his beautiful rays out, right? We're soaking up some of these rays. We've been soaking up all morning, right? Man, it feels good. It feels good. Let's get into the information today, right? Let's let the room fill up a little bit. Peace and love, everybody. Peace and love, my brothers. It's peace and love, Shrooms. It's peace and love, Dev. How y'all feeling today? How are y'all doing today? That's the question. That's the question. How are y'all doing today? Right? That's the question. Look, I'm sending this video out to my brothers and sisters. Hopefully, if any of them are free right now, they can tune in and maybe receive a transmission. Who knows? We'll see. All right, we'll see what's take place. Okay? All right, you're in class. Hey, you double learning, huh? You double learning, right? Oh, guys, look. Oh, the squirrel just ran past me. Oh, man. Oh, it ran off. It literally just stopped right in front of me, right? So, in this build, we are going to be talking about energy, vibration, and frequency, right? We're going to dispel all the misinformation, right? We're going to dispel all the misinformation today. We're going to come to the proper context, the proper understanding and overstanding, as Dr. Phil Valentine would say, right? Of what energy, frequency, and vibration is, right? We have to understand, right, what truly energy, frequency, vibration is, right? Do y'all know who Tesla is? Right? Y'all know who Tesla is, right? There's a quote by Tesla, right? It says, if you wish to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. Come on, bro, let's get it, right? In terms of Tesla, right? He said, if you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, vibration, and frequency, right? 369, exactly, my brother. A proton, a neutron, and an electron, right? Let's also go a little bit deeper, right? We are energy vibrating within a frequency, right? When I say these words, I want these words to resonate into your subconscious mind, right? Because we have to truly program our mind in the terms of energy, vibration, and frequency if we really want to understand the laws of the universe, right? So we are energy vibrating, which is movement, right? We're energy moving. Everything is moving. The wind is moving. The birds are moving. The trees are moving, right? The cells within our own body are moving. Our heart is even pumping all the time, right? That's moving, right? So we're energy vibrating within a frequency, right? So what is a frequency, right? A frequency, and I call it a frequency band, right? So let's start to understand what this place is, right? The sun in the second layer, right, is generating what is known as what is known as electromagnetic radiation, right? In other words, electromagnetic spectrum, right? The electromagnetic field, right? That's where everything is existing in on this planet, right? So I'm going to paint a picture for you guys, okay? The magnetic field of the earth is the metaphorical lens, right? The sun is the light that's projecting the image, and the earth, the crust, right, is the white canvas or the white sheet that we put the projector on to see the movie that we're watching. Right? It's important. This is important that we understand this, right? We have to understand what's really taking place, right? So that means we're existing within the visible light spectrum right now, literally, right? What you're seeing, right, is the visible light spectrum, right? Which is which is in between red and purple, right? All other colors in between, red and purple, right? Red is vibrating at 750 nanometers, okay? Purple vibrates between 450 nanometers and 350 nanometers, right? Hey, that's a fact. That's a fact, right? So our eyes, our retinas, can only pick up from red to purple, right? Red being 750 nanometers, right? And purple, right, being 300 or 450 between 350 nanometers, right? So that means anything outside of 750 nanometers and 350 nanometers means that our eyes cannot pick it up. So for example, right, if a person can change his vibration, right? So we red shift, blue shift, exactly, right? And we're gonna get into eyes, the importance of the eyes, because I'm gonna be explaining why our ancestors worshipped cats, felines. I got into it last night, but today I'm gonna get in a lot deeper. Exactly, right? Why our ancestors worshipped crocodiles, snakes, right? It has to do with their eyes and their ability to be able to see the entire spectrum, right? Let's talk about the retinas real quick. And this has to do with circular polarization, elliptical polarization, and different things like that, and how waves travel within a different shape, right? So, let's break. First, we got to understand this plane, right? There's this big, like people think that this is just an Earth, that this is all it is. Like people think that this is, no, we're just vibrating within the visible light spectrum. That's all we're doing. We're just vibrating within the visible light spectrum. Right? You tap out of that frequency band into, let's say, the infrared spectrum or the ultraviolet spectrum. I won't be able to see you in the visible light spectrum, right? If I was to tap in, right now into the either into the infrared spectrum or the ultraviolet spectrum, right? You couldn't see me right now. You literally see a phone walking with facts, my brother, facts. And I'm gonna get into that. Why cats are important, right? To me, right? And now we gotta classify which animals are on the lower frequency end, which animals are on the higher frequency end, right? And the bird is key, right? Horus, Heru, right? I'm gonna be explaining all of this, right? Why our ancestors studied all this, okay? But first, before we get into that, we have to understand exactly what this plane is, okay? There are 7 dimensions to one light photon, right? That modern science is aware of. There's really 9 dimensions, right? But we're gonna leave it at 8 dimensions right now, right? Which is the radio wave spectrum, the microwave spectrum, the infrared spectrum, okay, the visible light spectrum, okay, the ultraviolet spectrum, okay, the X-ray spectrum, okay, and the gamma ray spectrum. That's 7 different spectrums. That's 7 different dimensions to a light photon, right? So within that one light photon, there is a microwave spectrum, there is a visible light spectrum, which is what we're seeing, which is what we're existing in, right? You have an infrared spectrum, a gamma ray spectrum, an ultraviolet spectrum. You have all these different spectrums, these different dimensions, right? To where energy can exist in and vibrate in, right? To one light photon, okay? This is extremely key to understand, right? Now I'm going to show you the 8th dimension, right? The 8th dimension to a light photon is the cosmic ray spectrum, right? Which is known as neutrinos or ghost particles, right? These are particles of light that are vibrating so fast that they travel through physical matter. Okay? Obviously, other name, right? Neutrino, antimatter, it's the same shit. Okay? It's the same stuff. Right? Antimatter is the effect of a neutrino photon. Right? Just like we got light photons and then we got matter, right? You have neutrinos, then you got antimatter, right? Or dark matter, right? It's super important that we understand exactly what's taking place on this planet and how energy vibrates within certain frequencies to generate life, right? The motion between a photon, right? The back and forth, the oscillation from one wave, from one end of the wave, right, into the opposite end of the wave. That back and forth movement is literally generating life as we know it, or the ripples. Okay? So let's paint this picture. Okay? We're existing on a plane, right? We're existing within the visible light spectrum, right? Which is just not even 2% of the actual electromagnetic spectrum, right? So what happens if our eyes, right, could pick up other spectrums, right? What would happen? What would happen if our eyes were able to see into other spectrum? Like, what would happen if we had elliptical, like cats, right? Elliptical retinas, right? So I'm gonna go into the retinas and how it works, right? And this is why it's so important that we understand our anatomy, because once we understand exactly how our eyes work, right, then we'll be able to connect that to how this plane works, right, and how we see photons and how we see one dimension of a photon, which we're only looking at the visible light spectrum of a photon. Okay? We're only seeing one light spectrum of a photon. We're only seeing one dimension. There are 8 dimensions in a photon. So right now, this sun right here, it's emitting all 9 dimensions of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Our eyes are only picking up, and our sensory nerves, we were only trained to pick up the visible light spectrum, right? So that means we're not seeing what's in the gamma ray spectrum. We're not seeing what's in the microwave spectrum. We're not seeing, right, what's in these other spectrums, right? Because our eyes, our retinas, can only see in between 750 nanometers, which is the color red, and 350 nanometers, which is the color purple. Okay? This is super important, right? To why our ancestors worship cats, why our ancestors worship the jaguars, why our ancestors worship hawks or snakes, right? It's the difference in the retinas. Because the difference in your retinas allows you to pick up more light, right? Or doesn't allow you to pick up more light, which changes the image that you're seeing. So let me give you another example, right? Let's look at cats, for example, right? And I did a little build last night that if y'all want to go check out, like, I definitely recommend go checking that out, right? And before we go into this, I just want this, like, y'all to know, right? I'm not doing this for the clout. I'm not doing this for the likes, right? I don't want 300 people liking my post. I don't want 1,000 people liking my post. I don't want 200 people liking my post, right? I'm not here for the clout. I'm not here to argue with nobody. If you're debating with somebody and argue with somebody, that means you aren't really creating anything, right? If you got to debate over stuff, that means you got no time to do anything else. Well, I just saw 2 dragonflies, which I just drew a dragonfly the other day, or yesterday, right? But if you have to debate information, right? If I have to argue with somebody over this, I don't argue. You feel me? The truth. All right. So, my bad, guys. Always reconnecting issues, right? But there's no need to debate this information. Just go look it up. That's all I'm telling you. Go look this information up. And I mean, the reason why people don't really fuck with me like that is because they don't have that truth finding, that truth seeking that motion, that energy to find the truth. If they wanted to find the truth and seek out the truth, they will come to the same conclusions that I came to, right? The first thing that I realized, right, before we get back, back into the information, is how can I understand or perceive anything, right? Everything's interpretation, right? That's what I realized. Everything's interpretation, right? But how can everything be interpretation if there are certain facts that we all abide to? There's certain laws that we all abide to. First of all, gravity, right? Which is a law that can be bent if you understand how to repulse magnets and how to actually change the charge of a magnetic field inside of an electron, and then that refracts outwardly into a stone, a rock, a car. If you can change the magnetic field of a car, right, the charge to the same charge of the Earth's magnetic field, you create anti-gravity, right? That's a whole other bit for a day. Exactly. I don't want those people. Exactly, right? I want truth seekers, right? I need people that are going to study as hard as I am, So we can bounce ideas, so we can really come down to how our ancestors used to think and view reality, right? So I noticed that we were all arguing over our own interpretations of knowledge, right? And I realized, okay, there are certain truths that we all buy to, right? Let me show you. Right? One truth is that we all walk on this earth. It don't matter what your interpretation of the earth, it don't matter what your knowledge of the earth, it don't matter any of that. Right? These are the truths and the facts that you cannot argue. Okay? And I want to let you know this. You cannot argue this. We all walk on this earth. Animals, trees, humans. Right? We all walk on this earth. Another thing too, right? We all sit underneath this sun. Okay, peace and love, Belle. It's peace and love, goddess. Right? So, for example, I'm in Texas right now. Tejas, right? The Lone Star State, right? I'm getting the same rays that Belle is getting in Las Vegas or Nevada, wherever she's at, right? I'm getting the same rays. I'm getting the same information from the sun, like Devin in Michigan, right? This is what's connecting us, right? Like this one right here is what's connecting us, right? These are facts that you cannot argue, right? If Belle was to walk out right now and get on live and point her camera up to the sky, we're looking at the same exact celestial body. These are facts, okay? So there are certain facts that it doesn't matter what interpretation you have. These are certain facts, okay? These are facts, okay? So when I came to that understanding, right, I have to try to live my life and structure my knowledge and structure my children's knowledge, right, in the form as close to the truth, right, as possible, right? So I don't call like a lot of these names the names y'all call it, because these are new age concepts and these don't really, these names are parables, right? So there are certain truths, right? So when I began studying how our eyes work, how we feel air, how our sensory nerves in our skin receive signals, how our brain processes these signals through the cranial nerve, which is vagus nerve, which is the Nile River of your body, right? The Nile River is the biggest river in the entire world, right? It's the biggest river in the entire world. This cranial nerve is the biggest nerve in your body that controls everything. It sends information, right? When I began studying the body, right, I started to understand how we all are all perceiving these different realities, right? Right? And I'm not talking about the way you grew up, because that is what creates your different interpretation of whatever you're studying, right? So I had to go beyond that, right? How does this plane work? How does the sun work? How does this earth generate a magnetic field, right, that encases all 5 atmospheres, the troposphere, the mesosphere, the stratosphere, the exosphere, right? These different spheres, right, which contains the wind currents, right, that generate ocean currents, that generates the electricity to keep the planet alive, right? I had to understand exactly how this place works. And when I took the time to meditate, when I took the time to research the thoughts that I was having, because I didn't have the name for the words, but I knew what I was talking about, right? So the hardest part was finding the names that matched the definitions on the thoughts that I was having, right? But once I found those names and definitions, and I began really articulating myself and really structuring this knowledge, right? Because a lot of people have a lot of knowledge, but the way that it's structured, it won't allow them to articulate it in a form that can wake somebody up, or that can show them exactly what they're existing on, right? So this is why I study. I don't just study knowledge in textbooks and things like that, right? I study how to speak. I study how, because I do have a stuttering issue, right? So when I say I'm studying knowledge and things like that, it's sometimes I'm studying how to speak properly. It's sometimes I'm studying how to breathe properly so I can properly speak with the right cadence and vibrations. And right now I'm learning about how hand movements, when you're speaking, attracts attention, right? It attracts eyes, right? These are all the different things that I'm learning, as well as learning on top of the knowledge of the earth, right? So once I began to reverse engineer my mind, reverse engineer my soul, reverse engineer the knowledge, I came down to a complete understanding, right? Not the complete understanding to where I know everything, because I'll never know everything. I'll tell you that right now. I don't know everything. You know, I'm gonna let you know now, right? I'm never gonna tell you that I know everything. I know a lot of stuff, right? And every day I'm studying to keep my mom, not my mom, but my mind evolving and cultivating it to make sure it's sharp as a diamond, right? So once came to understanding, it hit me. Once I realized that this is all just the visible light spectrum, this entire earth that we're seeing, we're just traveling in the visible light spectrum. So what happens if we were to have retinas that could see in the ultraviolet spectrum, right? These are questions that I began asking my subconscious, my universe, right? When I'm out in nature, I'm asking these questions, right? Then if you ask, you always receive an answer, right? You always receive an answer, right? Always receive an answer when you ask a question. But it's not about asking a lot of questions. It's about asking the right question, right? The right question gets you the right answers that unlock the right opportunity that holds everything for you, right? For example, right? There is the way that I treat my girl and my goddess, right? No man has ever treated her like that before. So she does things for me that she never did for no other man. That's because I touched her, and I not touched her physically, but I touched her heart in the right spot. I touched her mind in the right spot. There we go. Let's get it, right? So it's about asking the right questions that is going to open up the entire book of knowledge to you, right? So I was explaining with my goddess, right? Not touched her physically, right? Or sexually, anything like that, right? I'm talking mentally and emotionally. I touched her emotionally and mentally in the right areas. So she does things for me that she didn't do with past boyfriends, right? She has a level of trust that she never had with any other boyfriend, right? She with me that, like in a way that she never experienced with anybody else, right? All because I hit the right spots, right? So if you ask the right questions, you'll receive the right knowledge, right? And remember, not all knowledge is needed for the reality that you're trying to create, right? I don't want to know everything. I don't want that burden, that tahuti, that thought burden, right, of knowing everything, right? So once I understood that our retinas and our sensory nerves have been programmed to only see and feel in the visible light spectrum, that's when it hit me, right? These astral planes, these ancestor planes that people keep talking about, these higher realms that people keep saying that they experience, they're not realms, they're not astral planes, they're spectrums of light. They're the other spectrums on the electromagnetic spectrum, right? And then once I came to that understanding, right, and in California, when I came to the understanding, I just held the knowledge in for so long because I felt like people weren't ready for it, right? It's people aren't ready to tap into their spectrum bodies. People aren't ready to actually see the other spectrums, right? Because if they could travel, I wish people can travel with me, man. I wish I can pull y'all out of y'all's dreams and show y'all the other spectrums, because if y'all seen the other spectrums, right, you would stop everything you're doing right now and you would try to get into a nature. You would try to advance and want to create a stronger bond to your spectrum body so you can travel this entire plane, right? Right? So when they say astral travel, it's just spectrum traveling. Right? And when they say astral projection or light body, right? Or in ancient Kemet is known as the Ra, is the Ram, right? Which is known as your light body, right? It's called the quantum body or the spectrum body, right? The spectrum body is the closest to the truth as you're going to get, right? Your pineal gland, right, is the master gland, right? Your pineal gland is a chemical doorway that allows you to view into other dimensions within the cosmos, right? Your pineal gland is a chemical doorway, right? When certain chemicals get released into your pineal gland, it causes your pineal gland to frave open, frave close, frave open, frave close. Every time it fraves open, it secretes what is known as neuromelanin, right? We got to understand when your pineal gland begins to pulsate, right? That's how you know it begins to activate. And some of y'all can feel it when you meditate. And sometimes when y'all really tap into deep meditation, you begin to feel your pineal gland begin to throb, right? That's your pineal gland pulsating, activating, right? When this happens, focus on that pulsation. Focus on the heartbeat, the throbbing of your pineal gland. And once you do that, there's your key, right? That's your key to your spectrum body, or what is known as your light ship, right? Or what is in Kemet known as the Ram, right? So, why is it important, right? Your pineal gland is the router. Okay? Your pineal gland is the router. Let me give you an example, right? So you put a router in a house, right? This router produces a signal called Wi-Fi, right? Obviously, y'all have routers and Wi-Fi, right? Y'all know how this shit works, okay? I take 8 devices, right? iPad, Xbox, iPod, cell phones, right? 8 devices that can tap into Wi-Fi, right? When I turn one device on, right, that device is sending signals to the router to let it know to send signal back to the device to harness Wi-Fi, right? So now, the pineal gland is the router. You have spectrum bodies, okay? Or light bodies, or astral bodies, right? Or etheric bodies. You have spectrum bodies in the microwave spectrum. You have a body in the gamma ray spectrum. You have a body in the ultraviolet spectrum. You have a body in all these different spectrums, right? Once you learn how to leave this body, right, which this body just exists within the visible light spectrum. This is the center of the entire spectrum. You gotta realize, why is the visible light spectrum at the center point of the entire electromagnetic spectrum? This is the balance ground. This is the Mayatian ground. This is the scale ground, right? And when you tap into the other spectrums, right, you experience the worlds of that spectrum, right, which is just the same Earth, right? But you'll have different people, you'll have different civilizations, you'll have different types of nature, right? You'll see different things, right? All the people see these pyramids and things like that. But in other spectrums, there are people right now living in Kemet right now, using the pyramids right now in the higher spectrums, right now as we speak, right? And I showed a video last night of the Black Panther and how when he took that herb, right, and they buried him, right, in that red sand, right, he started having visions of memories, right, and then he was projected into what is known as the ancestor planes, is what they call it in the movie, right, the ancestor planes, right. He pops up out the earth and he looks around, and they walked up to this big tree with 3 panthers sitting on there, right. Funny how it's 3 panthers. I think it's 3. It might be 4, but I'm pretty sure it's 3, right. Now, right, that panther hops down off the tree and then holographically turns into his grandfather or his father, right? Then he gave his father a hug, right? Now let's pause for a second and let's reverse engineer what happened, okay? It's about reverse engineering everything. You want to figure out the answer to life? Reverse engineer everything, okay? So, while he's talking to his father in the ancestor plane, okay, his body is still on Earth. His body is still buried beneath the red sand. And you want to go even deeper into that reality, right? The people that buried him are still there. They're still there, waiting for him to finish this travel to the ancestor plane, right? So why they're watching the red, like his body underneath the red sand and or the red clay, right? He's experiencing a whole nother reality on a whole nother plane, okay? And mind you, he gave his father a hug. He was actually able to feel his father in the ancestor plane, but his body is buried back in the visible light spectrum, right? And if you observe the celestial prowess of that scene, you'll see how it's more purple, it's more violet, right? Go buy an ultraviolet light and go hook it up into your room and turn it on. It will produce that same type of violet light glow that you saw in that scene, right? what he traveled to, which it's funny because the ultraviolet spectrum is literally to the left of the visible light spectrum, right? So that world that you see him get into, that was the ultraviolet spectrum, right? Or what he called the ancestor plane, right? Or what most people, when astral project, call the astral planes, the higher worlds and the lower worlds, right? Spirit Science done a whole 8-minute video on this, right? Not calling it spectrums, right? But calling it the astral planes, the higher and lower worlds, right? Why is this important, right? Our eyes, our circular retinas, absorb photons at a certain pattern, a certain angle, right? Now imagine if I had cat retinas, right? Which you all have had cats before, right? Cats have what is called elliptical retinas, okay? They're yoni retinas, elliptical, right? You probably noticed, right? Our retinas expand and despan, just like our lungs, expand and despan, right? Just like the sun goes in a high state, right? It's to where it produces more energy, and then it goes into a dormant state, which is a solar minimum and a solar maximum. Right? Everything expands and despands. Your pineal gland pulses, expands and despands. Okay? So our retinas can only see electromagnetic waves in a certain angle, which allows us to see what we're seeing now, right? But if we had cat retinas, right, light would travel into our retinas at a different angle because of the different shape of our retinas, which allows us to see a different spectrum of this world, right? So when you see cats look around dating all the time, they're not looking at the same reality that you're looking at, just to let you know, right? Let's go a little bit deeper, right? At nighttime, right, our retinas expand, right, to allow more light photons to enter in our eyes so we can balance out the image to be able to see depth in the dark, okay? It's all about perception and depth, okay? You go to a cat's retinas, right? And notice how a cat retinas is similar to a crocodile and a snake's eyes, right? Notice how human eyes are similar to hawk and bird eyes, right? Now you're starting to see Heru, right? Now you're starting to see the different serpent deities of these ancient civilizations. So you can tell which civilizations were tapped into their lower spectrums and communicating with lower spectrum entities, and which civilizations were connected to the higher, the bird, the Horus, right? Spectrums, right? We about to get in. We about to get in, right? And I'm about to in a minute, right? I'm catching as much light as I can right now, before we go in and grab the iPad, and before we go in and we start really looking at the different eyes and the different things, and I start showing you ancient carvings from ancient civilizations, right? And things like that, right? I'm showing you why our ancestors did all this, right? Okay, so let's go deeper, right? Cats, right? When you flash a light in a cat's eyes, the retinas become almost non-existent, right? That means the cat's eyes is already absorbing more light than our circular retinas are, right? And this is called circular polarization versus elliptical polarization, right? Waves travel differently within a circle than they do in elliptical, right? Waves travel different within a hexagon, right? Then they travel differently like within a square, right? These waves change shape, right? Horizontally and vertically, which are the two main dimensions, okay? And I'm going to be going into this heavy later on today, okay? And all this information I've been sitting on for at least 6-7 months now, right? I've been sitting on cultivating it, right? Now I'm into psychic awareness. Now my studies are about psychic synchronicities between you and your partner, right? You and your friends, you and your tribe, right? Like, these are about the psychic synchronicities between birds and how you see flocks of birds all migrating together, all moving the same way, never hitting each other due to psychic connection, okay? This is what I'm studying now, right? So a cat's eyes, right? When it narrows like that, right? It's seeing sharper images. It's seeing more colors, right? Obviously, a cat's eyes has more rods and cones within their eyes, which allows them to pick up more light, right? And I'm going to be going into what's the cone language, the pineal language, the pineal gland language, right? Which is also known as the cone language, which is a hidden language that nobody knows about, right? Except our ancestors in Egypt, right? Because they used the meta nature to half the meta nature, right? Is this cone language that we're talking about, right? But instead of doing it in a cone way, right, we found a way to use our actual tongues and our actual diaphragm and our vocal cords to do the same thing, right? So cats, when they're in nighttime, right, when when the sun goes down, the moon comes up, right, their retinas expand, right, bigger than the human's retinas, right? They expand, like basically like taking damn near the whole eyeball, right? That allows the cat, right, to absorb more light photons, right? And those light photons hit the retina, then travel through the retina. Cats have an extra layer of protein behind the retina called a typrid, like lucidum or something like that. And what this does is the extra light photons that travel through the retina get reflected back through the retina again. And this is what produces night vision, right? This is why cats, jaguars, right? Animals, deers have this reflective layer when you flash light in the woods, right? That reflective layer they're seeing in night vision, right? We as humans have this ability as well, but we have lost the knowledge on how to create and develop these proteins by eating certain fruits. Yo, we're going in heavy today. Heavy. Certain foods can stimulate protein growth within your eyes, right? To allow you to create different filters that allow you to see the different spectrums of this plane, right? So, mind you, our eyes, our retinas, our circular retinas can only pick up between the color red and the color purple, right? You break that down mathematically because these numbers are mathematicals, right? That's 750 nanometers, right? Where do you get nanometers from? You get it from tones and vibrations, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, right? These are all colors, okay? Our eyes receive in between 750 nanometers and 350 nanometers, which is the color purple and red, okay? So anything that exists outside those colors, our eyes cannot pick up, right? So I'm re-establishing that we're existing on a spectrum, a frequency band, right? This visible light spectrum is a frequency, right? We are energy vibrating in, which vibrating is equal to vibration, right? As Tesla said, you want to understand the secrets of the universe? Think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, bro. We just figured it out. We just figured this shit out, bro. We are energy vibrating within a frequency, right? We are existing within the visible light frequency, right? We're energy vibrating, moving within this visible light frequency, okay? So that means there's other energy vibrating within the other frequency bands, right? Now that we got that understanding, right? Now that we understand why our ancestors worshiped the lions, the jaguars, the panthers, these different things, is because of the retinas and how they're able to absorb more light, which allows them to see different parts of the spectrum that the human eye cannot see, right? The modern day human cannot see. Due to the lack of knowledge, due to the proteins and the foods that we eat, right? And due to us not having a proper understanding on the truth on what this place is. Okay? So now that we've established, right, that there are energies, right, entities vibrating, which is moving within a frequency, right? Tesla said, and I'm going to repeat this again, right? Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. The frequency is the plane that we're existing on, right? The planet, this visible light frequency, right? That's the frequency that we're all existing on, that we're all in, right? We're all moving. Our hearts are moving when we don't even think about it. The cells are traveling up and down our bloodstream without us even thinking about it. That's vibration. Vibration is movement, right? And we're energy moving within this frequency, right? So now that we have the proper context, the proper understanding on the world that we're living in, hey, my brother, you already know. You already know. 369, that's the key. That's the key. Proton, neutron, electron, the hydrogen atom, right? The 369 is correlated to the proton, the neutron, and the electron, right? Also correlated to energy, frequency, vibration, right? Which is the hydrogen atom, the original, right? So now, right, we understand that our eyes can only see the visible light spectrum. So imagine if we had cat retinas, right, as human beings. That would allow us to see different parts of this electromagnetic spectrum. Okay? If we had which hawk and bird retinas are more similar to humans than cats, right? So let's go deeper. Let's dive a little deeper, right? And all of this I can scientifically prove to you right now, right? First of all, how y'all doing today? How y'all feeling, right? And when y'all are out in nature, I want y'all to think about this, right? Think about this, right? Go to Snapchat, or Instagram has a filter, right? It's take a picture of a tree, right? Now use the different filters to see what changes, right? When you take a picture of a tree, right, and you swipe right, it changes the whole color. All right, let's get it, right? All right, let's get it. Boy, I'm standing right next to my place right now, so there's Wi-Fi definitely connected to this hoe. I don't know why it's doing that reconnecting shit, right? So if we were to take a picture, right, and if we had filters that were able to see the infrared spectrum, the microwave spectrum, the ultraviolet spectrum, right, and these different spectrums, right, we would picture a tree, right? We would see that tree. Let's swipe right. Now we would see that tree in an infrared spectrum, right? Now we would see different colors. Now we would see different things that we wouldn't see in the normal optical lens, right? Switch it to gamma ray spectrum, right? Now you see things that weren't there, right? We have to understand we've been programmed to stay within this visible light spectrum, right? And if we don't understand how to break free, we're never going to understand how the ancestors built the structures, because that's the key. Is people forget, right? Without knowledge of chemistry, you cannot take resources from the ground and make anything. And this is why I'm so passionate about this stuff, because I want to emphasize to people, it's so important to know, to understand. If this, right, if nobody's here, right, let's imagine, right, let's use our minds and let's do a thought experiment, right? Let's create another Earth real quick, right? Let's all travel to the Earth, right? No humans, nothing but trees, nature, rocks, waterfalls, right? How would y'all build civilization with the knowledge that y'all have now? Just be honest, right? There's certain aspects that I couldn't create right now, right? How would we build civilization? How could you make concrete? How could you make metal? Right? Because all this is just minerals from the earth. Without the knowledge of chemistry, which is the true wealth of us, right? We got to understand that physical wealth, that's illusion. It's the knowledge, it's the wealth on how to take minerals from the earth and to create it into physical wealth, right? To take minerals, to create, is to take diamond ores or gold ores to be able to create a gold necklace or a gold crown, right? This is the wealth. That's the wealth. That's the knowledge that our ancestors left us that has been stripped from us. And you see the system using that ancient knowledge, and they even got a pyramid on the fucking dollar bill, right? They're using this knowledge to basically become rich, wealthy. They took our ancestor knowledge on chemistry, on how to take minerals from the earth and to take those minerals in its original state and being able to manipulate it into stuff that we can use to live life, to experience life, right? That knowledge is the wealth, right? And I try to emphasize that to people, is that if we didn't have knowledge of chemistry, alchemy, like my brother said, right, we wouldn't know how to build anything. We wouldn't even know how to take a tree and make a buff for it. Right? We wouldn't even know how to make certain rocks. We wouldn't even know how to make grout, run cement to keep the rocks there. Right? That is the wealth. right? To be able to go to any environment and build you a home. That is wealth. To be able to stay in any environment, go to Antarctica, to the freezing cold, and be able to use the resources of that land to build you a life to where you can sustain yourself. Without that knowledge, you're going to die. You and your family are going to perish to the harsh environment of Mother Nature. This place is a learning ground. This place is a place to where you prove yourself mentally, and then the final application of awareness is physical application. Okay? Physical application is taking knowledge that you learn mentally, now physically applying that knowledge and developing technology, right? And technology doesn't mean electronic devices, right? As technology can be a rope, scissors, right? Alcohol. These are different types of technology, right? So our wealth is the knowledge of chemistry. The wealth is the knowledge to be able to go to any environment, to be able to take trees, rock, string, and to be able to create a life out of that, a comfortable life, if that. Yes, final application of awareness is the physical application. That's a fact, right? And it's mind-boggling to me, right? Because yes, they built everything for us already, so we don't need the knowledge of chemistry, right? But what happens when the civilization goes? What happens when a tsunami comes and wipes out the whole entire California coastline? Is what happens when the fault line in California opens up, right? Sinkholes start to open up. Like what happens when as tectonic plate overturning starts to take place? How are y'all going to be able to sustain a life that's worth living if y'all don't have the knowledge of chemistry? Because for y'all, for example, I don't want to be eating off leaves. You feel me? I don't want to be eating off leaves, right? I watched a video the other day on how to make coconut oil. It takes so much work to just make coconut oil. A simple thing that I go buy at the store for $7. It takes an entire day to make a certain amount of coconut oil, right? Through heating, through extracting, through these different things, through cooling, right? This is chemistry. So the very coconut oil that we use to nourish our skin takes chemistry to even make, because you can't take a coconut right now, and yes, you can take the coconut milk and all that and put it on your skin, but it's not going to do the effect that coconut oil has on your skin. And we have to come to this understanding, right? So let's go a bit deeper, right? And I'm traveling from many different subjects to show you how they're all connected to one another, right? That's the missing link in this society and our community, is we want to compartmentalize everything. We want to keep everything separate, but that's not, everything is connected. All sciences, all subject is connected. They all intertwine and intermingle with each other. We just have to find the intermingle point is the point to where they intersect, right? So now, right, we understand exactly what's taking place here. We understand that we're existing within the electromagnetic spectrum. We understand that the visible light spectrum is in the dead center of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? We understand that we have other spectrum bodies in the microwave spectrum, the infrared spectrum, that we can tap into, right? The same thing is taking place on other planets with similar suns, right? Now let's go a little bit more cosmic level, right? Different suns produce different electromagnetic fields, right? And when I say electromagnetic field, think of it as the electromagnetic spectrum, but I'm just tired of saying electromagnetic spectrum all the time. Facts. Literally, language is the facts, right? And our ancestors developed language, right? Like they would hear the wind travel through the jungles, right? Echoing different noises and sounds, and they would take that and they were able to break down, because each tone is a different geometrical shape, right? You put rice on, there's a telescope called a semantoscope, right? Which this takes pictures of different tones of frequencies, right? Also, they use a thing to where they put rice on a plate and they take a piano and they do different tones, right? These different tones causes the plate to vibrate and to move these rices in certain specific geometrical patterns, right? Our ancestors were so advanced, they would take the noises that they hear from nature, being able to develop geometrical shapes from those noises, right? And these are mathematicians that we're talking about, right? Mathematically map out what these shapes are, and then this is how they develop a language with that's the same language that Mother Nature speaks, right? Which is known as the Meta Nature, which is the oldest language that we're aware of right now. And I'm not talking about civilizations that exist within the ocean, right? That you know, like that exists, you know, around Japan and different things like that. We're just keeping it from civilizations that are, you know, that are on the land today that we know of, right? We have to understand as well that this isn't the only spectrum of life. And if y'all could astral project, right? And when I say astral project, I'm talking about spectrum traveling, but I say astral project because that's what y'all know as leaving y'all's body into y'all's light body, right? If I say spectrum traveling, y'all be like, what is that? Right? That's what we're really doing. We're traveling into our other spectrum bodies or other light bodies, and we're exploring in those light bodies. We're vibrating within those certain frequency bands, right? This is why I don't have an urge. Yes, I would love to go to Kemet one day and be able to see it in this visible light spectrum, but I didn't already seen it in the ultraviolet spectrum. I've done already seen the pyramids in the gamma ray spectrum because I traveled there spectrumly, quantumly, right? So I don't have an urge like all these seven great wonders, the Stonehenges, and all these things